Good morning, everybody. Today, Workbook Lesson 118. Today, I will accept God's peace and joy in glad exchange for all the substitutes which I have made for happiness and rest. I think today is going to be a wonderful day. Looks like everybody's all set up. So, with no further ado, here we go. I'm reading the lesson summary like I usually do from Tom's book. Tom, help me out with the name. I've misplaced that page again.
It's Understanding A Course in Miracles workbook lessons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. Found it again. Let's get rid of that blame, shame, guilt, and fear with love. Lesson summary 105 and 106. So we're on 118 and we're summarizing some stuff from a couple of weeks ago. Lesson 105 is God's peace and joy are mine. And lesson 106 is let me be still and listen to the truth. God's peace and joy are mine. Today, I will accept God's peace and joy in glad exchange for all the egoic substitutes that I have made for happiness and peace. Let me be still and listen to the truth. Let my own ego's feeble voice from my littleness be still, and let me hear the mighty voice for truth itself, that I am God's perfect Son. So at the top of the hour, we want to say, God's peace and joy are mine. And on the half hour, let me be still and listen to the truth. I'm going to travel back in time. And if anybody has a suggestion, let me see, which one of these should we read? Joy's peace, God's peace and joy are mine. Let me be still and listen to the truth. You know what? I think I need a lesson on listening today. So I'm going to read the notes from 106. Let me be still and listen to the truth. I don't know about you guys, but my ego's voice is super loud sometimes. Okay. Lesson 106. Most of us are in a constant inner dialogue with our egoic mind. We may hear a voice inside of our head, or more likely, we will be engaging in self-talk. This inner talk of the ego tends to be negative and often revolves around justifying your actions and emotions or judging another's words and deeds. Most people are in continuous communication with this judging machine that we call our ego. The ego is the voice for your littleness, arguing for its own rightness and justifying its own attack thoughts and grievances. Most people are constantly engaged in internal egoic mind chatter. This inner dialogue prevents real communication from occurring. Most two-party conversations are carried on between four voices, two talking heads, and their two egos. Mostly, communication is actually taking place, not between the two talking heads, but rather between each person's body and their own egoic mind. Most of the time, one of them's waiting for the other to finish so they can jump in and tell them what their egoic mind want to say. This inner dialogue, rather than the voice of the other party, is what we tend to hear. Each party is looking for any verbal pause by the other person so they can interrupt and take over the conversation rather than listen to what the other party is saying. They're thinking about what they're going to say next. If they hear the other party's voice, those words are first filtered through their ego's belief system as they eagerly await their next chance to take over and allow their ego's inner voice to go public. Before you can hope to hear the voice for your big S self, your higher self, you need to silence the constant mind chatter of your little ego or your little S self. This lesson suggests that you be still and listen to the truth. Because we're so used to carrying on this inner dialogue with our ego's judging machine, most people fail to hear the voice for the higher self. The voice for the Holy Spirit resides within your split mind and patiently waits for you to ask for its guidance. Silence your ego's voice and listen and follow this higher guidance. ACIM cautions that your undisciplined mind must be retrained to hear that voice for your capital S, big S, self. Beware, for when you ask for guidance, the voice for your ego will always, always, always answer first. Your ego will argue for your rightness and justify why you are entitled to feel and react in your normal, negative, fear-based ways. A Course in Miracles says you should not just blindly assume that because you have asked for any guidance, that any voice you hear is coming from the Holy Spirit. Instead, ACIM offers a test to confirm the true source of communication. Ask yourself this question: does following that guidance help restore my inner peace? If it does not, you've heard the false voice for fear, the littleness, and your ego. If your inner peace is not restored, you need to once again be still, silence your egoic mind chatter, and ask again for guidance from the Holy Spirit. Simply ask again. When that new guidance is received, retest that advice with the same question: does following that guidance help restore my inner peace? Repeat the process until your inner peace has been restored. Although it appears that the ego's voice is the loudest, it is not the strongest. Your ego's voice will not last against the voice for truth. The Holy Spirit will always answer your call. Your task is to be still, listen, and ultimately follow the voice of your higher, big S, self. Remember to constantly monitor your own inner peace. The Holy Spirit will never do anything that would increase your fear, so it is no longer necessary to continue to argue for your ego's littleness. Instead, silence the ego and listen for the voice of the Holy Spirit. Learn the truth that to give is to receive. Dismiss the voice for the egoic world that claims you are limited ego, body. Listen to the voice for truth and become a messenger for God. The world is a reflection of you. Become a witness for God and the voice for love. By following the Holy Spirit, you will learn that to give is to receive. You will become the peace you seek in your world, and your world will reflect back that same peace that you have given. Your world can be at peace even when a fear-based world surrounds you. Let's take a moment and feel the surface beneath us. That surface that supports us. It's not a slippery surface. You have a nice, firm support. You're always supported, inside and out. Notice that your body rests on something that is connected to our Mother Earth, where we're all connected. Let the energy inside of you root down into Mother Earth, deep, deep down. We are all rooting to the same point, down into the heart of Mother Earth, where we all draw our life from. All of our physical needs are supported there. As you feel comfortable and rest within this surface, know that your root chakra down at the bottom, base of your spine, is lighting up with a beautiful red color. Moving up into your abdomen, the orange, sacral, still up to your solar plexus, that point right in the middle of your body. Yellow with fire, power, vitality. Still up higher into the green heart of love, and further into your throat. That makes sound, communication. It's blue. Into your third eye, your forehead, light, intuition, indigo. All the way to your crown chakra, at the top of your head, thought, understanding, a beautiful, deep violet. Finally, let's all let our spirit light up. If we were looking down through each of those colors, we'd see a beautiful white light. Let that white light spread and grow as you take some deep breaths and listen to me read the lesson just one more time. We are really moving through these lessons in a beautiful way, one little bit at a time, slowly unlocking the keys to get back in touch with that higher source inside of us. It's always there, and you can never be without it. As long as you walk this earth, it's a part of you, yet greater than you. That's the oneness that connects you with every other soul on this planet. Everything living, everything breathing together. Today, God's peace and joy are mine. Today, I will accept God's peace and joy in glad exchange for all the substitutes which I've made for happiness and rest. Today, let me be still and listen to the truth. Let my own feeble voice be still, and let me hear the mighty voice of truth itself assure me that I am God's perfect child. On the hour, let's remember God's peace and joy are mine. And on the half hour, let me be still and listen to the truth. Today, take these blessings with you anywhere you go. I'll remind you to set a reminder as I need to for myself. I don't want to miss one of these opportunities to get back into God's peace and joy. And I don't want to miss any of the truth that my higher source gives to me to make my life better, so I can do the same for my brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining me this morning. And thank you for joining me every morning as we come here and read these lessons. I feel like the more we have here, the more power this has to make the world a better place. And that's what I want for my kids and me and everybody here. So blessings to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Lesson 118 is a wonderful one. We've got 2 more review practices in the next couple of days, and then we're on to our next big chunk of the book. Today, though, all we need to do for this 24 hours is remain in God's peace and joy, and be still and listen to the truth. Thank you, everybody. I'd love to hear how this feels for you. If anybody would like to come up, you're welcome to. I will make myself a moderator so I can turn the cameras on. Here we go. All right. And it's open if anybody cares to join us up top. Here, there's better audio. I forgot to turn mine on, but c'est la vie. All right, I'm done. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Oh, and I'll get the questions for the day in here in the chat in just a minute. We'll find those for us. The questions are, is your mind constantly having an inner dialogue with your ego? Is your inner dialogue a negative or positive influence on your life? I can tell you last night I had something that tripped me up. My inner dialogue said something and it came out of my mouth before I could stop it. And it's something that I want to make sure those things don't fall out of my mouth. The ego speaks first and loudest means sometimes it gets out before I have a chance to filter about whether it's something I even want to verbalize. So today, and one day at a time, I want to stop my inner dialogue from becoming my outer dialogue before I have a chance to decide whether or not that's what I want to hear or what I want to share. So I guess, at least at some levels, I let my ego run a little riot. And I did, to my detriment. So today I'm going to take a deep breath before I talk, because I only want to share the best. want to keep those around me in peace as well.
Sometimes I can actually um, believe that I'm listening to an argument between my inner voice, my higher, my Holy Spirit inside me, and the ego inside me, and they're discussing something, and they're discussing, well, this may restore peace now, but later on you're going to really regret if you don't respond now and straighten things out. Well, that's clearly the ego trying to maintain its viewpoint about life and guide us in that direction. And the thing that makes the difference when that argument is going on inside me, and it does, um, I remember that the only peace I can have is being in the present time, because peace later may be nice, but it's not doing me any good right now. And the only thing that's important is to have peace now. So, for all the ego chatter, it's only useful to let it go. Because if I follow it, it doesn't bring the best results and it doesn't bring the best of me out. Peace is only maintained now, no matter what your ego says to the contrary. That's my thought about this so far.
Whenever I was, a teenager, young adult,
Hey,
my
Tom, could you come a
inner.
little closer to your phone, please, sir?
Oh, okay. Can you hear?
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, okay. Whenever I was younger, child, a teenager, young adult, my inner dialogue was constantly arguing why I was either a victim or why the beliefs that I had been taught about myself were true, which, of course, in my case, was that you were worthless, that you were the devil, that there was something wrong with you, and that you didn't deserve anything good because, after all, you were a worthless piece of shit. So it was that type of dialogue that was constantly going on, and it was just a perpetuation of the victim consciousness. And your ego is typically, I mean, it's coming from your beliefs. Your ego is really your beliefs about yourself that you hold on a perhaps a deeper, not necessarily conscious level. So the ego is arguing for the rightness of its beliefs. Most of those beliefs are detrimental to your well being. So it's not really arguing for your happiness, it's arguing for its right that the belief that you've accepted as your own, that you're a worthless piece of shit, is true. And therefore, uh, it was constant negative self talk as to why I deserved bad things, or if things were going right, why it needed to be reversed, and that ultimate failure would, and pain and suffering would be the result. So that was the constant inner dialogue that was always involved. And that inner dialogue, if whenever you just stop and you think about it, uh, it's not something that's going to support your happiness. It's not anything that's going to support your growth. All that it's going to do is move you deeper and deeper into victim consciousness and this idea that you're an earner, and a very poor one at that. And so it's very important to start looking at that inner dialogue and realize that that represents your beliefs about yourself. And if they don't support you, um, you need to realize that uh, until you're willing to examine those beliefs, question them, and maybe even take a leap of faith that there could be a different way that you could make a different choice, that you could make a different assumption about yourself, or take some different uh, corollary belief saying that, if I'm a worthless piece of shit, maybe if I work real hard or do something, I can eventually get someplace else. But as long as you refuse to look at those originating beliefs that you hold, your life will be a repeat of the past. And only when you examine them, question them, or what the Course says, ask for that higher guidance and silence the ego long enough to hear it, the voice for the truth about yourself, you'll remain in those negative creation cycles. So beliefs always come first, and if your experiences are not what you want, there's something wrong with your beliefs and what your ego believes about yourself. Thank you.
I kind of come from a little bit of a different perspective as far as, well, maybe it's a lot different, but the place that I go seems to be the same. Um, and I don't think a lot before I speak, but if I if I find that by hearing myself often is when I'll realize, do I really believe that I just said, or do I really feel that way? And then I can contemplate it a little more, and the change sort of happens. When I've tried to control myself, it's like the one that says, "Oh, I'm going to try not to swear." I swear so much more. It's like it's like a focus, and then it turns into me doing it because I'm focusing on not doing it. So if I'm focused on not doing something, yeah, it seems to cause me to do it more. So I guess that's how I've been kind of I find that it's quite useful, and to just, I guess, yeah, to not watch what I'm doing. And then if it comes up, surfaces something in me and them and then me, then I relook at it with an open mind and an open heart, and not with trying to say, I really look at it really openly, like for myself, because I want to learn. I'm a learner, and I always want to learn. That's really really my purpose. Don't have a lot of inner dialogue either, I should say. I used to, but I don't now. So now it's more of a going with it. Adriana, sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. You're doing such a great sharing. Don't stop. I mean, I'm agree with you in many levels, because it's not about not talking about things. It's about how can you talk about things without attachment to the ideas, and not getting frustrated or controlling over the interaction that you may have with other people around the things that you said. So it's something quite interesting for me to observe in myself and in others, because in myself I know that for many reasons I don't say things as I'm thinking the things. I don't say it because I know that they coming from the ego, because I know that if I say it, well, it will cause more issue than what I actually want to have in the moment. So I just shut up. And there's sometimes um, when if I hear something, I want to just ask questions or have a conversation. But when that ends up in a conflict, I have to take responsibility as well of my own perception of things. So I end up shut up as well. But I know for sure that the most healthy thing from my point of view is really being able to speak what you have in mind without any attachment on the thought on your side and in others' opinions, because the conflict also comes when you are talking about something that you are not quite like understanding yourself about yourself, and you share it, but then the other person tries to just interact with that thought, but as you are not so sure about what you were thinking, then you are trying to control other people's reaction to the thought that you just shared. So it becomes a mess, and it's because the thoughts get in some form an identification of yourself, and that is not true. So when egoic thoughts and you just share it without attachment on your side and on the expectations of other people reactions to it, it gets really healthy. It gets really healthy because then you can like unlock the mind and go to the heart in a very kind way and in a very loving way. It's like not rejecting your thoughts but not attaching to them, because you are realizing that those thoughts are not the truth, are not yourself. So you're sharing it. Yes, it makes sense out of the nonsense that you probably are thinking, but you are not trying to control the entire conversation or to just delve into a thought that you are not able to organize by yourself. So I agree with what you're saying, Andy. I mean, there's sometimes when you don't need to shut up, you just go with the thought and share it, but don't get attached to it. I mean, accept the fact that your thoughts, if you are expressing it outside of you, will have some impact in the people around you, even if it's not, you know what is, even if it's not like a specific and direct conversation with other people. If you are sharing spaces and I mumble a lot. I mumble a lot when I'm working, for example. And if I start mumbling with my computer or what I do, of course I'm gonna catch the attention of other people in the room. And if I'm mumbling in a specific way where I can show that I'm frustrated about something, and if the other people is around me, of course they will get curious, like what happened. So you need to realize that yes, we need to express ourselves, our thoughts, our ego, and let those things. But the attachment is what makes it complicated in terms of um, a conversation or a relationship. Because if you get attached to the idea of that you're going to be judged or guilt or feel guilty or whatever, then you will not let that thought go away and be part of something beautiful. Sometimes when you are in a bad position in your mind or in your heart, the most really healthy and loving way for yourself is sharing it without feeling judged and without judging other people's perceptions on that same specific thought. So I really agree with you, and it's another approach of the same topic.
I
And
do too.
I just want to say one quick thing about this too, is it also goes for the other side. If I don't understand something you said and I want to, I have to have the nerve to say it. Hey, what do you mean?
Exactly.
Because then we're not communicating if I don't. And yeah, I want to know what you mean by that, because maybe I'm perceiving something different. And usually I am. So I don't want to just assume you're saying something and then get disgruntled. And if I'm disgruntled, it's just there to tell me, hey, try to like understand what's being said. Don't assume.
Yes. I have never heard a share in this room that I can remember about mumbling. And I mumble a lot when I'm working. And when I'm, why is my computer doing this? Or if it's that kind of mumbling and just different things. And oh, like if Lee wrote me something and I'm responding to it, I might be saying out loud, okay, Lee, that ought to fix this problem. And then Susie, who might be in the room at the same time, says, "Are you talking to Lee?" or something like that. And sometimes it comes into a discussion, sometimes it doesn't. But this whole idea of mumbling, it's pleasant in general to me, and it's kind of fun and sometimes too. But the more you share your story about mumbling, Adriana, I began to think about that. And if what we started with in this discussion, it said, does the following, let's see, does following the guidance restore my inner peace? If not, ask again. Okay, if the guidance that I'm getting is restoring an inner voice, another voice meaning ego in this time, then the argument continues. And without getting into this any more deeply, all I'm trying to say is, if I have a thought and I'm not sure who's telling me that, if I get the thought, you can't handle the truth, or one of those things, and just end up being frustrated, that's all ego crap. If there's an argument, it's the ego doing it, because the Holy Spirit doesn't ever argue with us. We don't get, if we start a dialogue, even, well, that's not the Holy Spirit. That's the Holy Spirit. He's telling me I got to be strong here. If that argumentative voice comes in, then it's really my ego trying to pose as the Holy Spirit. Because the beautiful thing that Tom, I don't know if it came straight from the share or not. I think Tom included it, and I think it's a great way to understand that if my peace has not been restored, then I'm listening to the wrong voice inside my head. And in that case, I probably can't handle the truth at that moment. And I best be quiet. And that's what I wanted to say about mumbling. Thanks.
Great, great
Yeah,
analysis on mumbling.
yeah, when we're listening to the voices in our head, the ego tends to be arguing for its rightness. It's not really sharing, it's trying to convince somebody else or manipulate somebody else. And one of the tools that it'll use is, arguing for its rightness or trying to blame, shame, or guilt trip the other party as to why it's right. So it's not interested in uh, gaining knowledge, it's interested in gaining the uh, its rightness and confirming its rightness, and therefore looking at things as a battle with the idea that it needs to correct or convince or fix the other party because its idea is the only right way for the world to see it. And therefore, it's typically arguing for its rightness and using whatever tactic it can do to win the argument. And if that means reverting to name calling or whatever, so be it, because it's got to win at all costs. And of course, that comes ultimately at your cost of your own happiness or really inner peace. Thank you.
Which is another way of saying, um, if I see that argument in any way to be right, I can say to myself, for today, I will allow and accept it to be right, and I get my peace back. Because ultimately, peace is a really nice thing to have. And being a grumbler instead of a mumbler. A mumber. Wait a minute. Let's see what mumber. Yeah, mumbler. Okay. Uh, don't be a grumbler. And mumbling is okay as long as it doesn't change into grumbling. It's this is really a little simple test and a way to peace when the world is screaming at us that we should be screaming at it. We don't need that. It's much nicer here with peace if we can just accept it. That's all we have to do. It doesn't even cost a penny. Thanks.
I know for sure that keeping quiet for me is really hard. Really. I have always been so egoic in that sense that I have a lot of trouble remaining myself in silence when something is not like the way I want to have it. So it's really something that challenged my perception, my mind today. Now that I have the Course in Miracles, I really can see that I need to really just keep quiet. You need to shut up when you are not having, for example, when I have those kind of moments when I feel like annoyed and by something, whatever, and inside of me starts to bubble the emotion of this is not right, so I need to set something about this. But in the past, I will just let it go and move forward with whatever the situation will bring because I just wanted to like enforce the truth in others. And now I know that I don't need to do that. I mean, I don't have to do that. And if I feel that I have to, it's because it's really painful and I have to do it in a loving way, not in a way that the other people feel like threatened or like because I can be very strong with my word. Well, maybe not that much in English because I don't have the same variety of words, but in Spanish I always was really very, very strong-minded in my own point of view. And it has been really difficult for people around me to move my perception into other kind of things if they don't have the right arguments or the strong eloquence that I can have in Spanish. So now I know, and I have learned in so many ways, bad ways or good ways, that there's sometimes that, yeah, you need to just keep quiet. There's a saying in Spanish, like, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything.
We have it here too. Same thing. I think when a person starts to really get angry in Spanish, it has at least twice as much power as someone in English getting mean and yelling at somebody. Spanish, because I'm thinking there's a comedy show that we all have watched for years, and what's her name? That she's
What, the one with Sofia Vergara?
yes. When she gets
Modern
angry
Family. Yeah.
and starts going in Spanish, just watch out, duck, get out of the way,
Yes.
because oh my God,
Yeah.
she's hilarious.
Yeah.
Hi, Bob. Good morning. How are you?
Dinesh, how are
Yeah.
you? I
I'm
heard
so
that you were
happy to
here yesterday.
hear you. I'm so happy to hear you.
Happy to hear you too. It's great to
Yeah,
see you.
I know. I'm happy to be back. I sent you
It's
a
good.
message. I'll try my best to stick on this. Hi, everyone. Can I
Uh,
ask Adriana something? Because when she was speaking, I feel Adriana, how are you? I feel that um what you're saying is exactly what I'm going through because when it's like thing to you, it's like you just react, and I'm trying my best as well to like just take it, and even if it's bad. But the question I have is, it's okay, isn't it okay sometimes if it's not your fault, and if someone does something to hurt your feelings or something which is just unjust, yeah, I think it's okay. We all should exercise calmness. That's a good thing. But I guess we're all human beings, and we're all born and built with these.
I lost you. I don't know if you're
Uh,
saying me.
yeah, I mean it's natural to get angry. It's natural to have outbursts. It's natural to voice yourself in a firm way when something is hurting inside. So when I was listening to you, I don't know. I just felt like maybe you and me have very similar um, characteristics, or our natures may be quite similar. So I just want to share something with you because something is how do I say, something is eating me up. I'm like, Dinesh, why? I mean, Bob knows I've been through a lot with my father, etc. A long time. I'm not going to go into details. Basically, we had issues. So in a shortcut, he did bad things to me, blah blah blah, and I was in depression for 2 3 years. So finally, last year, he comes back to me crying and saying that my sister abused him and blah blah blah, and he wants to stay with me and my kids and be a family again. So I should forgive him, and he's made mistakes. So I took him back in. Well, it's been going on for 6 months now. And just the other day, we have an issue where he's supposed to give me an apartment and he's messed things up. He's screwed up things with the apartment. He's put a tenant in there who's not good and so many things. And I'm relying on him to sell off the apartment because he he cheated me from my home in England, and he's supposed to sell that apartment, give me the money so I could buy an apartment for my kids in England. And I've even accepted that it's half the value, and I'm not going to get anything. So I told him, okay, sell it off, and then so he's like, okay. And for the past 6 months, he's been like tossing me around, and the tenant and this and that. So the other day, he says that this is the issue, blah blah blah, and so I just had a firm talk with him, and I was like, no, this is not going to go on, Dad. You have to sort it out. And I don't care for your feelings. I don't care for you. What I care for is my kids because you've put us in a mess. I did not yell at him. I was firm with him. And then I walked off. But then what happened was I didn't yell or shout at him. I spoke to him firmly, and then I left the room. But inside me, there was still the hurt and the pain. So the next day, I was having lunch with my wife, and I ended up yelling, not at my wife, but my feelings. I was talking to her and expressing myself, and it came out in a high tone, and I was yelling. I was like, I can't take this anymore, and blah 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 blah. And then it happened again 2 days later. So what I did was I even told my wife, let's sit in the lounge, which is a bit away from his room. And I closed the door, and I was just telling her my feelings, that I don't deserve this, what he's doing to me, blah, blah, blah. And I was very loud, very, very loud, because it was really, it's like the hurt and the pain had compounded over the past few days. So the thing is, if I had actually yelled at my dad or shouted at him and expressed myself fully, maybe the next couple of days would have been better for me. I don't know. I was so loud that the next day he actually left home again. And again, things are like messed up again. But then the thing is, I keep saying, Dinesh, why did you um speak like this so loudly? Why didn't you just go and like, just go outside the house and just like walk or something? But the thing is, in these moments when your should I say your emotions trigger, or your anger triggers, or whatever, you don't think of what to do to control yourself. It just comes out. And I think that is natural. But then it's like, why do you eat yourself up after that? Like, okay, you say, why did I express myself? Why did I yell? Even if it was not to my dad on his face, it was away in another room expressing myself with my wife, that I hate him and I hate him, and shouting all sorts of things to him. It was not to him. But then I still feel bad about it. But then at the same time, what am I to do? I can't let people hurt me and just keep it in. That makes you sick, I believe. So I just want to ask if you understand, and is that what you go through as well from your side?
Let me
Thank you,
jump.
thank
Let me
you,
jump. I'm going to
thank you,
jump in,
Dinesh.
and then I'm going to jump in,
But he
and
was
then
a
you can. I know
okay.
he asked you, Dinesh. That's exactly what this morning's lesson was all about, and it has the answer. And Adriana is now going to tell you. Okay, I said my little piece. Adriana.
Okay, okay. The lesson today is today I will accept God's peace and joy in glad exchange for all the substitutes with which I have made for happiness and rest. So what I see here, and thank you, Bob, because I was going to that same very spot. One thing is the dynamics that you are referring to. And yes, my answer to you is yes, I do have the very same dynamics that you have. And that dynamic always get me in trouble, always get me in conflict. But it's not something that I must judge as bad or good. It just is, as you yourself have that like in some sort of order right now. It's something that you cannot like really avoid. I mean, when something triggers you, it triggers you in so and it is so fast that you can even like understand how it happened in some form. But the feeling is so strong that it's just like pouring out of you without any control. So yes, I do have
Yeah.
that, and I do believe too that it is part of how things go, the dynamic. You know what the course and what we are doing in understanding the oneness concept and our spiritual part, that it's really the true self that we are, is that every single conflict that we face is an attachment in some form to the level of the form, because you are believing, you're still believing that you are incomplete, that you are not holy, and that you are lacking something. So what I have done, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but what I have done and what works for me is keeping in mind that I need to have responsibility instead of reaction. We talked about this in a few lessons ago, but I'm gonna share with you because for me it was really powerful. Having responsibility, if you split the word in two, you have response and ability. Responsibility normally is like taking all the guilt and all the things, and you say, yeah, this is mine and I'm going to take care of it. But if you split them the word in two, you will find another meaning, like responsibility. What is the best way to respond? What love will have you do in that case? That is one thing. The other thing is reaction. Reaction is react. If you split that word in two, you will be reacting in the same form that the situation is bringing, because you are not understanding that the situation is a consequence of your own lackness in your mind. So, whatever is in trouble with your father, all of the grievance that you're holding against him, you need to really try to find a way to the one single cause of it, that it's you're thinking that you're lacking something in the level of the form. And yes, sometimes I gotta agree with you, the best and loving way to address a situation is really saying no in a way that maybe could like make a little bit of conflict, but you don't get attached to the idea that you are doing damage. You get attached to the idea that a loving no is a yes as well, because you're really putting order in some things around you to just seek only the peace, only the love, only the idea that you want peace in your heart and in your mind. But that doesn't come from the outside. So if you're in conflict, in constant conflict with your father over materialistic things, it's because all of those conflicts are pointing out at the same single source of all the conflicts in all the world, that we are thinking that we are the body, that we are thinking that we are lacking something, that we are thinking that we are not complete, not enough, not wholly whole and complete as God made us. If you see the entire universe, the universe has no waste around it. I mean, the universe and the nature takes everything and transform it into something that is worth for somebody or something, or some part of the ecosystem will make a new thing out of it, and it's sustainable without you, your mind, your thought process being part of it. So if there's something in the level of the form that it's causing this, is because it is a reminder that that is something that you need to figure out to reverse the thought. What is the idea of you having something from your father means to you? What is it? Is it that if you have materialistic things from your father, you will feel love or something? That's why the conflicts are into our lives, to waking us up and make us remember. It's not that you're gonna be perfect, because you are already perfect. It's that you are remembering. So you have conflict in your life to remember constantly every single day that separation doesn't exist, that you are not whole, you are not incomplete. So that is what has been helping me a lot to figure my way out from fear or anger to love. Sometimes it has required from me an explosion, a Sofia Vergara bomb moment in my life, that I had to really be pretty demanding and say, no, I'm not agreeing on this. But every single time that I let my ego work in that way, but because I'm just willing to only address things in the path of love, the conflict isn't there anymore. I mean, I'm going to put an example. If everybody, if somebody feels that I'm talking too much, please let me know. But I think this is a good example. Um, The one of the last fights that I have with my ex-husband was over a simple word that he called me. He called me out of a nonsense in the kitchen. He called me like you're a filthy woman or something like that. But he did it out of the blue. My daughter was listening, and I was not willing to take that any longer. I was not willing to let him be like that, like freely like that, because my daughter now understands every single word. And what was happening was that there were some dishes that I decided to let rest in the kitchen dirty because I was feeling bad. I was having cramps and I needed to lay down. So I said to him, "You can leave those there, and I will wash it tomorrow. Don't worry about that. It's just that I'm having cramps and I have to lay down." And he was in another mindset. He was having situations in his mind, and out of the blue he called me, you're a filthy woman, because I was telling him that I was willing to take the dishes, but not in that moment. And I was so mad at him, and I feel so hurt that I start really to say, no, 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 you don't call me like that, and you're gonna respect me. And I was really calling inside of me the Holy Spirit, because I feel so much anger that I thought really that I was going to blow up. And I was calling inside of me the Holy Spirit, and every single time that inside of my mind, I was really, I'm not going to tolerate this, and Holy Spirit will guide me, guide me, guide me. And every time that I asked that, I had to keep insisting on him that that wasn't good, and he was getting mad at me because I was really enforcing the idea that that wasn't good, and he didn't even apologize or whatever. He started to say to me, look the example that you're giving to your daughter. Look how you're talking to me, and look the example that you're giving to my daughter, to your daughter. And when he did that in the past, it always broke my heart, because he was always that kind of manipulative that turned the things around, so I don't get to keep saying the things that I needed to say because my daughter was around or something. He always like tried to turn the table so I feel guilty. I stop the fighting. But this time, I swear to God that I was so really feeling like I was really guided, I turned to my daughter, and instead of shutting up as I always did and went away, this time I turned to my daughter, and in the same kind of strength that I was talking to him, saying, "This is not right, and that is not the way that you need to address a woman, and I'm not here to be the maid in this house." I turned to my daughter and I start to speak to her strongly and say, "Baby, I'm so sorry that you have to hear this discussion, but this is not right. No man can tell you that you are filthy because you're going to leave two dishes dirty in the kitchen, okay?" And that is the example that I'm setting to my daughter. I turned back to him and said to him, and when I did that, he changed his face and he said, "Well, okay, forgive me for saying that." And he was mad and whatever. I said, "No man," I turned again to her, "no man can tell you that. No matter if you whatever, 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 and that is not a loving way to deal with things around the house." And then he really understood and he stopped the fighting. So that is a good example. I know that it's not something that we like to have inside of us, but there's sometimes that we need to have the thunder in order to to move things around. I mean, the sky and the universe has the storms and the thunders for something. It's not that we need to avoid the rain or the clouds or whatever. The sun will always be there, but there's some days that you have thunder, and the thunder is also part of nature. But the way you address the idea that you can be a thunder, if you're going to do it out of really love, maybe the thunder is really something worth to have. So I have really understand really deeply that the attachment on the level of the form gives trouble. But it's not because you need to let things go without any importance at all. It's that you need to really trust that you are fully whole and complete. And if you have conflict in your life, it's because that is pointing at the only source of the problem. And unless you do really a deep, strong reflection on the things that you are attaching to and what they mean to you, and what would you have to be in order to not feel full, complete, or abundant without them, or if you don't have the capacity to build it for yourself, you will always be in expectations outside of you, and having that kind of things outside of you will not give you peace. The only person that can turn around the things for yourself is you, and with your mind. It's nothing about doing anything, is the perception on things. So I hope this helps, Dinesh, because for me it has
So,
been helpful.
so can I
I
ask?
think
Are you saying that basically, if okay, let me just take a random example. Today, a guy walks in and he slaps me on my face for no reason, and then he walks away, and then I'm not supposed to yell or shout and say, "What the hell? Why did he do that?" Blah blah blah. Am I supposed to say, "Oh, you know what? Maybe I deserved it, so let me just say, okay, that's cool. Let it be." Is that what? Because I don't. When you say not being attached to the form, so what you're saying is, okay, we are all divine, and this is something which had to happen, or am I supposed to just leave it? Let's say someone comes in and abuses my wife or my kids. Let's say someone comes in and does something to my kids. I can't just be attached to the form and say, "Oh, let it go," or "Don't react to it," because it's I don't do that to people. So why does someone have the right to do that to my kids or to me? So I'm
yeah,
a bit
I think
confused, you know.
Wait, wait,
I,
let's go
I
ahead, Tom.
think there's a assumption that spiritual people make that if you're a spiritual person, you'll behave a certain way. I think what the Course is really saying is that you should ask for guidance, and you may be very well surprised by the guidance that you actually receive. Because if you're seeing negative creation cycles, like, you're indicating. If you actually ask for guidance, you may find that it's your ego that's saying that a spiritual person would behave XYZ, and therefore you need to behave this way. If you really silence the ego, which is really arguing for its rightness of what a spiritual person might be or a well behaved person will react, if you actually silence that, which is arguing for the rightness of its opinion of what you're supposed to be able to, how you're supposed to act, you'd find that the Holy Spirit or the higher guidance really has all options on the table, that it will respond or advise you in a way that will first reduce your fear, minimize your fear, and then in the big picture also help, if you can control your own fear, minimize the other person's fear. The Holy Spirit's objective is always to reduce your fear. That's the first goal of everything, is to say, how will you best handle the situation that would reduce your fear? And it knows where you are. Otherwise, it knows where you're coming from, and it's going to meet you where you are, which might mean that it should say, hey, what you need to do is to respond in not a wallflower way, but actually on a big picture level, is to stand up for the things that you believe. Responsibility is the ability to respond appropriately with the principles that you've determined to guide your life. So if your principle says that I am that I am deserving of respect, uh, being responsible will be able to, you will respond in a way that will be appropriate to your principle that you deserve respect. So that means that you will not just necessarily roll over and say, well, I guess, it's telling you that the lesson that you're here to learn at that moment is that you need to develop a backbone and say, I am entitled to respect. That may be, and we're all teachers, we're all students, that may be the learning lesson on a picture level that the other person, your father, whoever that might be, needs to hear at that moment so that they can grow and learn. So experiences are there for the learning lessons that they provide. If I don't have a particular result that is moving me towards reducing my fear, then I need to uh, come up with another plan. If you have a situation where uh, you continually repeat the same action and expect different results, that's the sign of insanity. The experience is designed to teach you that you need to modify your belief. Otherwise, say in this example, I'm deserving of respect, or my children deserve respect, or my wife deserves respect, and then respond in a way that will help honor your principles that you've chosen to live your life. So, this idea that the Holy Spirit or the higher self will say, oh, Dinesh, you're supposed to be a nice, kind, loving person, and therefore you're just supposed to roll over, is a bunch of bunk. It will not do that. It'll say, hey, the lesson that you're here to learn after 25 lifetimes is to start standing up for your what you really are, and that you're perfect, whole, and complete. And therefore, I do not have to listen to somebody that believes that I'm a limited, lacking person, or that I don't deserve to be treated with respect. So, just be aware that spiritual people think that they're supposed to behave in some certain way. If we talk about the Bible, whenever Jesus was in the temple, he overthrew those money changers' tables. Uh, he did that because actually he realized that that was something that would get someone's attention, and that was, I would suspect, what his higher guidance told him to do. So that's the way it is. The Holy Spirit has all options on the table because it realizes that you're a learner and not an earner, and therefore you don't have to get a particular result. You don't have to get brownie points from some guardian angel sitting on your shoulder saying that, oh, okay, well, you'll suffer a little in this type time, but we're going to give you some reward in heaven later. No, the purpose is for you to learn to what the principles that are guiding your life, and the Holy Spirit will advise you as to what action to minimize your fear. And the Holy Spirit will always ask you to do the most loving way that you can respond, which will uh, help minimize your fear. Whereas the ego might say, kick the dog. The Holy Spirit might say, uh, based on where you're coming from, you kicked the dog yesterday. That didn't seem to work. Why don't we just cuss at it? And that's what the most loving way you could do it that time. And that's what the Holy Spirit will tell you. So don't assume that your ego knows what the Holy Spirit will say. That's a trap that'll get you in trouble and just get you stuck. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for your comments. I'll be honest with you. I don't agree with a lot of it, and I'll tell you why. In a very peaceful way. There is a large part of the Course in Miracles that comes later after we have learned these earlier things that says, don't defend yourself. And that, if you're in that mindset, is going to get more difficult, but it's actually a better way. However, it doesn't mean turn the other cheek either. What I would like to add here is that if we go an eye for an eye in an argument, we're going to have a lot of blind people. And the way I see this particular issue, this kind of thing, is we don't become the Vergara kind of personality. It all that does is perpetuate discomfort. What I would like to suggest is that if we follow what this book tells us, we will be at peace. And no one will come up to me, walk in, as you said, Dinesh, and slap my face. I haven't been slapped ever because I'm at peace. It's not, there's a cause and there's an effect. And Tom talks about that all the time. If we feel that we have to defend ourselves, there's a problem in that. We have to get to a peaceful place by being peaceful and arguing and defending our position, no matter how right it seems. In the end, doesn't help unless it's explained without any thunder and lightning. This is my opinion, but it's the way I see it, and it's the way I live my life. And when I don't live my life the way I want to, sometimes that will happen. It never diminishes the problem. It'll come back later if I feel that I have to defend my position. What I have learned is that the way to peace, that's why this particular lesson today, which Nilesh, you came in a little bit late, so you may not have heard it, is that the guidance that we want is always from the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit is not telling us. The Holy Spirit doesn't tell us, raise your voice and defend your position, ever. in my opinion. And everyone is free to have a different opinion and then see what the net result is in the long run. The best thing I can do is be quiet and wait for a peaceful response and not to thunder. It never has worked for me in the 50 years I've been married. And believe me, I've tried it out. Ask Lee. I'd like to say that there is a peaceful answer to most of this. If you don't hear one, then just shut up. If someone slaps you, walk away. Ask them, what'd you slap me for? Oh, you have a problem with your wife and you slapped me. Ah, well, okay. I wish you well. And there's no way to give a perfect answer like this because we are already into a negative frame of mind. What we have to do first is get out of the frame of mind. And that is the way to peace. You can't get to peace by defending yourself. Trust me. I think as much or more of this course is used to help us understand that later. But it's after we know the basic lesson that is, if we are arguing for our rightness and how wrong they were, we're already defending ourselves. But it just doesn't work. Let them be right.
But that is like
You
a
be
circular
happy.
reference, what you're doing right now. What
Well,
you're doing right now is like a circular reference because I can as well understand don't defend yourself
I
in
can flip.
that very same way. In that very same way of don't defend yourself when I mean, if you did something that you could control, that you couldn't control because it was a thunder that came out of you and made like some kind of damage, then afterwards, don't defend yourself. Just accept that it's part of something that you did. Don't get attached to it because I know that the course is really radical in the idea that we shouldn't react. Sorry, we shouldn't react. Okay, but if you did it anyway, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna just say, "Oh, I did wrong. I just got out of track in the Course in Miracles that I'm so effortlessly doing"? No, you just don't get attached to it. You don't defend yourself. You said, "Yeah, that happened, but why that happened?" And then you got curious about the dynamics as Dinesh is doing because you are really trying to find the truth behind all of that. Because again, if you take that specific sentence, don't defend yourself, you will have conflict in your life because there's sometimes that saying no strongly is the most loving way that you will have to make for yourself to move out of a situation from fear to love. There's sometimes that it works. I mean, the thunder is there for some reason. You don't need to know
Adriana,
why.
Adriana,
Uh-huh. What?
I love you more than life itself, but I still cannot agree with you. And I think as we go through the course and continue along, you'll find that you don't get into those kinds of arguments that require, I just have to ask you to trust this for a while. And you notice I'm not saying, Adriana, what you said was stupid. Listen, here's the way it is. Now, in effect, I said that, but I didn't say it that way. And I didn't keep the argument justified. I'm still saying what the course is teaching in the full course, which you will pick up as we go along. And when we get to it, I know that you're going to be talking about how can you not defend yourself? It's possible. We are not living in the wild west where if someone pulls a gun, I have to shoot his hand so he doesn't shoot me.
Well,
That
but that
doesn't
is your
happen.
experience. That does happen. That's my whole
Yes,
point. People get
Yes.
beat, people get in violence, and there's a lot of troubles in the world. So for you that never had a slap in your face, it's probably a different perspective on life, and you have been really in a position to be really kindly perceived in this world. But some, like maybe not myself, because I never experienced like physical violence, but I have been in the verge of it, and I come from a family with a lot of physical violence. It's really hard.
Mm,
I mean, we have examples here. For example, KM had this beautiful like overcoming of those kind of situation, but his waking up came from he observing his thunder, because he had a post-traumatic experience out of something that happened to him that was really hard. And when the time went by and he had a friend just triggered him in such a like innocent way, but he was really mad, and
mm-hmm,
he had to face the thunder in order for him to realize, wow, this is not me.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So I just want to
So
introduce something here, Adriana, because you and Bob and Tom are literally saying the same thing, but you think you're saying something different. And,
No.
what's missing out, hold on, Bob, please. What's missing out of this is intent. If you go to a fight expecting a fight, you'll get a fight, right? Our ego wants to fight. It wants to fight us, it wants to fight everybody else, right? And those reactions, what comes out of those fights, of course we don't want, but we get anyway, right? And if I go to a gunfight with a gun, chances are a lot greater that I'll get shot because I brought a gun, because I had intent, right? And I think what Bob's getting at is that there's no reason to fight, there's no reason to have that intent. Now, I'm a relatively peaceful person, but if somebody tries to hit me, I'll protect myself. I'll block the hit. I won't go in and try to punch him or anything, right? Because defense is the best offense. And if I go after someone,
I think it's the other way around.
no, it is.
No, it
Okay.
is
All right, Bob,
yeah.
go ahead, bud. You seem to
No,
know it. Come
no,
on. You know it. Go ahead.
yeah. All right, Sean. The phrase that you were referring to was a good offense is the best defense, and that's okay.
no, no, in the sports is defense is the best. How was it? I know I'm confused now.
All right. This is not an argument at all. I'm just clarifying that the quote is a good offense is the best defense, and I'm not trying to prove that
Yes,
that's
yes,
even.
yes, yes. In fact, yes, yes,
And,
yes.
I
and,
think the point
but
is that if we're gonna go into something with a perception that we have to defend is a totally different thing than going into something to say something, see the reaction and learn. Teach and learn at the same time. It's a totally different perspective. If I talk, it's because I'm hearing myself again. And if something and I'm open enough to say that something could come of it for me to learn and teach at the same time, it's all good, it's all a fair even exchange. But if I'm going into it to defend myself, yeah, like then so like nothing, I like if I'm going to be triggered and have to defend myself, then yeah, that's not my interest. But my interest is to hear myself again, see if I'm making any sense to myself, because sometimes I'm not, and then I'm like, oh, cool. I could see, and a discussion is so wonderful when it's coming from a place of like, of like trying to truly understand myself and others, not of a place
Exactly.
like,
Curiosity.
yeah. Like I'm not trying,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
curiosity, yes. So it's a curious thing rather than so like some people are already there in that state of mind when they're speaking, they're already there. They don't have to wait for the end of the course. They've already got this insight that they could be wrong when they're saying something and they're willing to put it out there and test it.
This whole
That's
conversation reminds
well,
me of Will Smith and Chris Rock.
Bob, can I
Yeah.
can I ask
that's
Bob
right.
yeah,
something, guys? I just
I,
want to ask Bob something if everyone's okay with it. Just a quick one.
Of course. Go ahead.
Okay, so Bob, I'll just be very transparent because I don't hide my feelings with anyone. Okay, when I I really love you. You know, the only reason I'm here is because of you. Actually, to me, you're like, I will not say like you. I mean, like a grandfather figure, or like a someone, like a figure who I'd love to just have in my life, someone to talk to me. So there are a few points I want to make. The first, I'll ask you a question at the end. I'll make two, three quick points and ask you a quick question at the end. The first point is, you see, um, if Adriana or me got mad and we were reacting and we had someone like you in our lives, just say like you lived with us, you're right beside us, and we're reacting, and you're like, oh Dinesh, you know what, please don't react, let us do this sensibly or peacefully. And I'll be like, oh yeah Bob, but this guy slapped me in the face, blah 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 blah, and you'll be like, Dinesh, just take it easy, I'm there with you, we're gonna solve it peacefully, blah blah blah. You know, I may just look at you and hold restraint and say, okay Bob, you know what, because of my love and respect for you, I'm going to listen to you. But the thing is, we don't have that in our lives. I don't have someone like you in my life. I don't know about Adriana. I'm sorry. I don't want to say yes or no, but I presume that she's like me, you know? But I mean, if I had someone like you in my life, someone who's soft spoken and very kind at heart and very nice as a grandfather figure or a father figure, I wish I had a dad like you, because the way you speak, it's like I feel I needed this when I was a kid, which I didn't get. My upbringing was very rough. I mean, I was shouted at, abused, neglected. I've been through a lot, so that is also a reason that I burst out. I call them mental outbursts. That's what I call them. People said anger outbursts, angry, provocative. I said no, they're mental outbursts, because I've got a lot of crap I'm dealing with since I'm like 8 years old. So that's the first thing. We don't have, or at least I don't have, a figure like you present in my life, at my home, to say, Dinesh, take it easy, man. Let's do this peacefully. That's the first step. That's the first point I want to make. I hope I'm right. The second is, I'll just share something quick with you. There's a friend I have. His name is VJ. So this guy is like you. He's like very soft spoken, and he's like, I was like, oh, you know, you just lost like $10,000 in that deal. Are you okay? I mean, it's like, oh yeah, don't worry. Sometimes it happens, you know. God is around, and he's a strong believer in Baba. Remember, I told you about Baba. So he went to his school. He was brought up in his school with values and everything. And you know, I tell my kids, I tell my eldest son, please don't be like me. Please don't be like me. Promise me you'll never be like me, because I don't want to see him like me. And I say, you know what? Be like Uncle VJ. Please look at him. He's so soft spoken. He's so good. And he's such a spiritual person. He's a vegetarian. He does charity. He speaks to you. You feel like God is speaking to you. He's so soft. The other day, about 2 months ago, he called me for dinner. I was at his office. His office is below his house. I sat with him, and I was in his office, and we were supposed to go up to his home for dinner. So I was sitting there chatting, and he had an issue where, I don't know, it was just a stupid issue. His driver took his car away for an hour without informing him. And then, so his wife comes in, and his wife is like, something, something, something. And he's like, okay, I'll talk to him. And I was like sitting there, I was just on my phone, and he picked up his phone, he starts talking to the driver, goes, where are you? Blah, blah, blah. And in a matter of 15 seconds, this guy yelled. He didn't yell, he exploded. He exploded like a nuclear weapon. And I was so shocked. I looked at him, and I walked out. I just gave him a hand signal that I'll step out for a bit. And I was shaking. I was nervous. I was scared. I was like, shit. And I walked out of his office, and I went to sit in his reception, and I could still hear him. And I swear I've never seen him ever. And I'm telling you from out of shame that I am a very hostile person. This is a weakness of mine. I'm not happy about it. But when I saw this guy, so the second point I have to make is that, you see, everyone, no matter how good you are, has a tipping point. That's the only thing I have to say. And the quickest thing I want to ask you, Bob, the third quick question, which is going to help me also, is that I want to be like you. When there's an issue, when someone is abusing me, my family, mistreating us, cheating us, betraying us, everything, I want to be able to react or respond like you, very calmly, very peacefully. So The other day, I was sitting and speaking to my wife. I said, "Darling, you know what I'm going to do? From today, I'm just going to speak very softly, very nicely, like VJ or like you, Bob." But then, the fear is what? The world is not like people like you. You're a very kind person, but the world is not. So, the more softer and calm and polite you get, the more people want a piece of you. That's the biggest problem I face. So, my
Okay,
quick question, just let me ask you the quick question, Bob.
sure.
Haven't you ever are you trying to tell me that you have never lost your cool, never ever exploded in your whole life, Bob? How
Okay,
how is
let
that possible?
ask Lee if I have ever exploded. He could not possibly count the ways. This is what I'm trying to say to you.
Oh, so wait, you mean you have,
Wait,
right?
wait,
So you mean you
listen.
have?
Of course I have.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay,
why that is
okay.
how I know that it doesn't work. And I can tell you that, I mean, from the time Lee was quite young, he and we would do some, I can remember we built some shelves in not even the house I'm in now, but two houses back that we had been in. And we were trying to just nail things or something. And I said, Lee, if you do it that way, it's not going to work. And I lost my cool. I've lost my cool more times than probably most of you. That's not that's not to say that you're seeing someone who is 77 years old who has learned how to do it wrong so perfectly that he can reject that going forward. That's what it takes. Because this lesson literally said, and it's the way Tom wrote it, if following the guidance that you think you're getting in front of you, which might be thundering at another person, does that restore your inner peace at that moment? And if it doesn't, you're going to have to ask again for some better guidance. The deal is not whether or not you defended yourself, whether you made another person right or wrong, and you corrected it, and you gave him an hour worth of lessons, assuming he would even stick around. It's really, are you at peace? Now, Dinesh, you said you went into the other room and you were still shaking. I've been in that situation. I went to a lawyer to try and solve a particular problem, and what he told me to do was sounded like good legal advice, but I was still shaking. In the end, he came up with a different advice, which was much better, and it did work. When you say to me, Dinesh, that you are, I forgot the phrase you just used, you have this nature or that nature. The purpose of this book is to get you to sit down for at least a year and put all that crap aside that you thought you should be doing. And most of us decide the way they're going to be and the way they're going to live based on the way they were brought up. It could be your parents, it could be an uncle, it could be friends that they have over who always like to argue. It could be something, a teacher in school, or many. It doesn't matter. If you're seeing something in me that you like, I can guarantee you, you already have it in you. It's called the Holy Spirit within. And that Holy Spirit within takes care of all the rightness and the wrongness. It puts all of that into balance. We don't walk around ever or have to sit down and stop shaking. And if I get into that position again, because I know it's possible, if I succumb to a particular warping of the lesson that tells me that I should be able to defend myself if they are wrong, the bigger truth is there's an easier way. And what you're asking for, I'm telling you, is already within you and has always been there. But the noise from the ego is what silences the advice of the Holy Spirit. It's always there. We slowly train ourselves. Give this thing a year, not one day or one part of a lesson. Give it a year of trying to do, maybe failing many times. If you give it a year, then you have been trained. And then these kinds of things will not happen. Now, the fact that I haven't been slapped is just luck because my father was a very peaceful person. So, to a great extent, you could say, well, you had him as an example. I didn't have that. Okay, you didn't have that. But that doesn't mean you don't have the full 100% answer to peace that's within you. If I have given you any hope that you might have that, assuming that I was around, some people will tie a string on their finger and or tattoo something that reminds them of a Bob in their life. It doesn't matter. All of these bodies, my body, Adriana's body, Tom's body, Sean's body, and I'm really sorry that I just said no the way I did. And he left the room, and I'm going to apologize to him because that was my
You don't have
my
to apologize.
well, it's I don't mind apologizing if I've been wrong, and I was wrong to interrupt him. One of the basic things about human discourse is allowing the other person to finish. And I don't usually interrupt, but today I did it several times because I'm trying to make the point that you're going down a road that is not going to lead to peace. And by interrupting, I just stop
You showed us that
the
you're passionate, Bob. Sorry, I just
well.
interrupted you because I didn't see anything that wrong because it's all that it just had to happen anyway.
It's
I
okay because
all right.
all we want is peace in the end. And if whatever we're doing is not bringing us to peace, it would be the same as my walking out of the room. But if I walk out of this room, I'm not going to either learn what someone else needed to teach me, and that would be fine. Lee has taught me so many things, and I have taught him many things. But we both had severe arguments many times because was in a life that was full of discord. And sometimes I thought one way was better. Sometimes I thought another way was better. In the end, the Holy Spirit gives me guidance. If I listen to it, I will be at peace. If I am listening for whatever reason to the ego inside me, I'm not going to be at peace. That is how I learn what is the difference between the Holy Spirit and the ego. Because as this book says, the Holy Spirit doesn't argue ever with me, it just goes silent. And that is right out of this book many times. If you
I
want to
think
run
what
with your
Sean
ego,
was
go for it. Yeah,
I think what Sean was trying to say is that it's not our actions, it's our intent. I can slap you and still be at peace because I have a different intent. So you're mistaking form for substance, and
Exactly.
it's the intent of why you do something that's the important thing. And you got to realize that in time, our purpose is here to learn and grow. And that means that we want experiences. And in the world of differentiation, where we have different experiences, we are here to hone our skills to see what is the proper response. And the Holy Spirit knows where we're coming from. It's been it's the Indian that's walked 10 miles in your moccasins, and therefore it knows where you are, what state you are, and how you can move forward in your learning progression. And that means that it'll meet you where it is and will say, what would love have me do that will, based on my ability to minimize my fear? And so, uh, if you understand what time is and that we're all actors and we're not the body, then we shouldn't take offense if the Holy Spirit says, slap this person because this person is trying to learn the idea that they need to respect themselves. And you can't respect yourself uh, if you let bullies or whatever walk all over you. So it's just a thing of what is your intent. If you slap somebody because that's what the Holy Spirit directed you to do, you'll actually be at inner peace. You'll find that your inner peace will be recovered more quickly than if you didn't do anything. You quote unquote turn the other cheek, and the next morning you're arguing with your wife or you're exploding at your wife or yelling because you didn't take some different action. It festers. So the goal is not necessarily to constantly maintain our inner peace, but to learn how to recover it more quickly. And sometimes by uh, responding in a particular way, that may actually uh, present a quicker recovery of your inner peace than by taking some other action and now having 20 lifetimes dealing with the same problem because you continued to insist egoically that your ego knew that a spiritual person would only act this way, and therefore you're supposed to be a spiritual person, and therefore you cannot act some other way. You're here to learn and grow, and that's what time is for. And when we mistake the game token for who we really are, we do ourselves a disservice. So I just say it's not action, it's why we do things. And I can do things, uh, do the same thing. I can slap someone in the face because I'm attacking that person. I can slap someone in the face because that's what the Holy Spirit said, and that they needed to become aware that maybe their action was inappropriate. The important thing is, am I honoring the principles that I've chosen to guide my life? And that's responsibility, the ability to respond in a way that honors the principles that you've chosen. If that's what you're doing, I think you'll find that you'll be able to recover your inner peace, and you will also have more options available to you than what the ego would say that you have, because the ego is going to argue for its rightness. And if it says this is what spiritual people do, then it's not going to give you that option. It's actually going to make you feel guilty when you uh, do something that actually was what the Holy Spirit might have tried to tell you to do. Uh, Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to say one more little story, and and then I think maybe, hopefully, we can put all of this at rest. If I just agree with everybody, then that sends a message that I don't want to send as a teacher. So I'm going to say this. It's a story of, I just remembered the first time and only time that I got punched in the face. I was in my own house. This was at least 25, 30 years ago, probably more. And a relative and the relative's companion were occupying one of the bedrooms. And it was not my mother in law's bedroom, who had a much nicer bed and so on. And she went away on a vacation trip. She was going to be gone for 2 weeks. She told me, make sure they don't get in my bed. And I said, okay. And they did. I walked in the room and I said, you have to get out of the bed. It's not what she asked me to do. And I will say in this case that the man in the came up to me and just stood with his fist clenched, which I didn't notice. And then he came up and punched me in the face. Now, anybody here can decide what they would have done. I don't know what I would have done in any other circumstance, but in this case, what I did was I did not throw a punch back. I just stopped, turned to Susie, who was behind me, and said, "Please call the sheriff. They're going to be evicted from this house." That is exactly what happened. It changed the direction of their life, certainly changed the direction of my life, and that's what I did. I'm not going to try and convince anybody that that's what they should have done in case they were in my situation. I'm just going to state it. And I can say that my life has become more exemplary because of that reaction than almost anything else I can think of. That doesn't mean I didn't argue with my wife afterwards many times. Once in a while, I still do. My goal is to stop that arguing as soon as I can because I'm losing my peace every moment. So even here, I waited until Tom was finished, and I didn't do that previously. Now my peace is restored. I hope this is helpful. If not, I'll be glad to discuss it anymore, but I still can maintain my point of view because I believe it. I just don't have to grab the other person by the neck and shake them and say, "Listen to what I'm saying, damn it." I don't have to do that. I just state my piece and leave it out there. So
Yeah.
that's my
In
story for
regards to
today.
that, yeah, in regards to that, Bob, I'd say that if I was you and if Dinesh was you, we would have reacted the same way. We would have called the police or responded with the sheriff. Everybody is acting in the most loving way that they can. And if I was you, I
Exactly.
would have those same experiences. I would have, and I would have responded the same way. But everybody else are in their own different place and time. And that's why when we give advice, we need to meet people where they are. And the only one that really knows that is the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit will guide you directly, but you're always on your own perfect place. You're always exactly where you need to be. But look at it from a learning perspective, not an earner, and realize that because I punched or I returned a punch or I called the sheriff, that doesn't mean that tomorrow I have to act the same way because I learned something from those experiences. And that's what time gives us is the ability to change. And time is the measure of change. And because I had that experience 2 days ago, I can now respond differently. Why? Because I'm not the same person that I was. The Bob of 30 years ago is not the same Bob of at age 77. So everybody's acting the most loving way that they can based on their beliefs, their assumptions about themselves, and the decisions that they make by their state of consciousness. And, I just want to say, everybody, and this is something we need to be aware of, that if I was you, the only thing that I would do would be to act exactly like you did because we're always acting in a Ripley's, believe it or not, the most loving way that our fear will allow us to do at any given moment. Thank you.
Can I say bye to everyone? I have to leave, but I just want to say bye to everyone and thanks for the stories. And Bob, thank you again. I'll see you, God willing, tomorrow. And I wish you all well. Take care,
Great
guys.
to
God
see you. Great to see you, Dinesh.
Thank you,
Bye, Dinesh.
Dinesh. Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody. And thank you, Tom, for everything, and Bob for everything. This is sure a very interesting lesson. I think I'm gonna delve into the reflections of this for a while because I think that there's something that I need to figure out. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kayam. You came up, and I didn't hear from you today, but thank you.
Yeah, hi guys. I was sleeping most of the time, like napping while listening. I only caught I was only able to join the stage later. And I was hearing Dinesh speak. Um, and I wonder how that went, but yeah. Um, it's just a call for love. Everything is just a love or a call for love. So yeah.
It
Great
is. It
reminder.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
great reminder.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Wish you all a wonderful day too.
Well, I appreciate you guys spending some time with us. I'll wrap up the stream and we'll be here tomorrow for lesson 119. Have a great day.